Hello, thank you for joining today's Clean Talk, Floor Care and Maintenance Best Practices. I'm Jake Meister, Senior Associate Editor for the Cleaning Market of Trade Press Media Group. Today's webcast is the learning objectives include discussing the key differences between vinyl types. We'll learn how to avoid costly mistakes. We'll review what to do when floors need restoration and also discuss the right tools, equipment, products, and daily maintenance techniques. Before we get started with today's event, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping details. First off, a special thanks to Tenet for sponsoring today's event. We appreciate them making this event possible. We do encourage audience questions throughout the webcast. To submit questions, please navigate to the Q&A/ask questions module at the bottom of the screen and type in your question at any time. Today's webcast will also be archived on cleanlink.com, our website, in about 24 hours. To successfully earn the 0.1 CEUs, you must watch 40 minutes or more of the webcast. You can download your certificate at the completion of the webcast in the Earn Certification module. And now let's learn more about our presenter. David Thompson is the Director of Education with the Academy of Cleaning Excellence. He's an accredited certification trainer at ISSA. Mr. Thompson has been in the facility maintenance industry for over 45 years with experience as a K-12 custodian, building services contractor, and a cleaning consultant. Dave has also spent over a decade educating frontline service personnel. His mantra is, I am a janitor and I save lives. Now I'll pass it along to Dave.
Well, you might have seen that dirty floor behind me. This is very typical of the issues that we have in the marketplace of LV. You might have noticed that it looks a little different in the colors. One side looks lighter, one side looks darker. So we're going to talk about that this afternoon. So thank you for joining us. Hopefully we'll answer some questions you might have and also maybe challenge a few, what we would consider the norms when we're talking about this. But before I get started, I kind of want to do a little bit of it's called a Kahoot. It's a game. And if everything goes right, you're going to see a QR code come up on the screen. And when you see that, scan it on your phone. If you're on your phone already, sorry. If you're on your laptop, you'll be able to scan it on your phone. But it's just a little bit of a game I do here to get started. I want to see some engagement, if you will. So let me get it started here. Now you're going to see a game pin come up. You also see a QR code. You can scan the code with your phone, or you can go to kahoot.it, not the app, but go to kahoot.it and put in that code number there. Put in your name, and I've got about 3 questions I want to ask you before we get started this afternoon. So I wonder if anybody is here. There's goody. I love to see people's names come up. That means something's working right. It's always a good thing to see. Thank you. Well, it looks like we're getting quite a few people here. We're up to 35. Cool. Now, there's no right or wrong answers with this. This is just something to kind of give me a little bit of an idea about what the if you will, the temperature of the room is this afternoon. I say afternoon because I'm here in Orlando, Florida. Don't know where you're at. Hopefully it's nice and sunny. It's nice and summertime here. We had a storm last night, but okay. Let's get started with the game. You can continue to join if you like. So you should see the question come up on your phone. Just answer true or false on your phone or on your computer, whatever you might be on. Well, kind of looks like we have a little difference of opinion here. True or false? Interesting. Well, thank you for participating in my little survey there. It kind of gives me a little temperature of the room and what some of our thoughts and processes are. So kind of let's kind of go through a few things, and maybe we'll talk about some of those here as we go through it. So the first thing I want you to know is one of the things that really causes a lot of problems for luxury vinyl floors of all different types is this nasty little guy here, abrasion. This happens from sand. What you're seeing here is 2 grains of sand blown up so that you can see them. Now, something you might not know, and you might put this down on your little list of, things to, that useless information sometimes. Each grain of sand can have up to 57 cutting edges. Yep, that's what they make sandpaper out of, or other abrasive materials. So why is this the #1 problem? Because this is what is tearing up your floors. Now, I know we're talking luxury vinyl this afternoon, but this is what is taking and shortening the life of all of your floors. So it's an equal opportunity destroyer, if you will. And no matter where in the world you live, sand is prevalent everywhere. Now, one of the things that we combat this and other soils on the floor is what's called auto scrubbers. We're going to talk about those this afternoon. You see several different types here. Basically, these are machines, if you're not using one currently, these are machines that have one area for cleaning solution or water, if you might be, and then the other is for the recovery or the dirty water. And obviously they're going to have some kind of a agitation device on the front. And the most important part of all of these machines is the squeegee that is the very last thing. You know, I say this in my class all the time. Doesn't matter what the head is, if the squeegee doesn't work, then the machine's a piece of junk. So that squeegee is the most important part. Now, one of the things that you need to understand about luxury vinyl, you may have heard me say this already, I call this all luxury vinyl because you have 2 different terms. And these 2 different terms are called luxury vinyl plank and luxury vinyl tile. Now, one of the things about these 2 materials is that they are durable and they are waterproof on the surface. And we're going to talk about that more this afternoon. So here's just kind of a rule of thumb. If it looks like a hardwood floor, like the one that you might have seen as we opened up here this afternoon, that is called luxury vinyl plank. Luxury vinyl plank is narrow and long. So it's going to be longer than it is wide. Now, if it looks like stone or mimics some kind of a textured stone material, and it's either square or rectangle, this is a luxury vinyl tile. Now, unfortunately, in the marketplace, everybody calls it luxury vinyl tile, and this is not correct because they are 2 different textures. And we're going to talk about that this afternoon as we go through as well. So for those professionals that want to use the correct terms, you either have luxury vinyl plank or luxury vinyl tile. Now, there's two others that we'll talk about very briefly, and that is roll goods and sheet. All of this is luxury vinyl. So when we talk about this, understand the term that I'm using, luxury vinyl, covers all of these, what they call makeups. Now, all of this luxury vinyl is made of multiple layers of material that aids in the design, the durability, and the ease of maintenance. And now I know that most of you probably this afternoon are probably thinking about ease of maintenance. There's nothing easy about maintaining this. Well, it is in some ways. And that is using cylindrical machines. For all luxury vinyl, my recommendation for day-to-day cleaning is cylindrical machine. You might say, what's a cylindrical machine? Well, that's this. Now, what you might notice here is that there are just thousands of small little bristles. Depending on the machine that you've got this on, these rotate in a cylindrical fashion, much like the brush roller on your vacuum cleaner. And they rotate anywhere over 1,000 RPMs generally. Now, all of these brushes that you see here do not collect soils. They also get into the grooves or the texture of the luxury vinyl. Now, if it's a luxury vinyl plank floor, you're going to have grooves that run the length of the plank. If it's luxury vinyl tile, it's going to be more smooth, but still have a texture, if you will. The whole thing here is, well, if you've seen these before, if you've got a tile or a plank, usually an installer somewhere along the line didn't quite get these seamed together quite right, and we have grooves in there. Now, one of the other things that people use is a mop. And, well, I hate to tell you folks, but I just don't like mops. Matter of fact, I don't know if you know this, but the mop was first brought around about the 1400s. It was first patented in 1893. And for some reason, still today, here in the 21st century, we feel that this thing is the best way to take care of this most modern type of floor. I don't believe so. And I'm going to show you why as we go through the afternoon. Now, one of the things that we all talk about is chemicals, and we use chemicals. So a little bit of pH class here before we get into all of this. Your blood is 7.365. And when I look at chemicals that people are using, I think about, well, what's really happening? So if you look over here at ammonia, or you look here at soapy water, or you look here at bleach, and let's not forget floor stripper down here at 14. You know, here's the thing. Do you know what the pH of that chemical is doing to your body? Well, as a COPD sufferer, my body suffers from the use of these high toxic chemicals that I used back in my 20s. And I'm now in my late 60s. So look here at where alkaline products 13 and 14 are 1 million to 10 million times stronger than the pH of your blood. You know, I have to ask you this question, and you can answer for yourself. Do you want to subject your body and the people that work with you or for you to these types of toxic chemicals? Well, I've learned that it's not good for me, and I'm not going to be the one to recommend that. So as you might already know, this afternoon, I'm going to recommend that we use lower pH products. Why? For the health of us. That's the most important thing. So let's review a little bit about what these products really are. I think this is something that's very interesting that you have to understand, is that vinyl composition tile, which has been around since the 1920s, is predominantly made of limestone and clay. Now, being that it is, it's only about 12% vinyl, which means that this is a very, very porous floor. And this is why we have to use a coating on it. If we didn't, you couldn't clean it. You couldn't maintain it. It wouldn't last. So this is why coatings, what we call wax or floor finish, is a necessity on vinyl composition floor. On the other hand, here we have all of the different types of LV. And as you can see, we have the plank floor here. We have the tiles here, and here we have the sheet goods, or roll, if you will, depending on what size it is. So for all of this luxury vinyl floor, what is going on? Well, there's wear layers. This is what you're walking on the top. So when it is put down initially at the start, when you purchase it, it has a wear layer on the top. It has a top coating layer that's there. Now, these are what you're actually walking on. So all the traffic and everything's on that. Below that is then your 3D printed layer that makes it look like whatever wood or stone that you want it to look like. Then you have the core material and the underlayment. Now, as you look at all of this, the surface is 100% non-porous. So unlike the VCT, the surface, when you get it and it's there put on your floor, it is 100% non-porous on the surface. However, that's not where the story stops. That's just where it starts. Now, as you can see, this is your luxury vinyl plank. This is what it looks like. This is luxury vinyl tile. Now they're getting very, very good with all of the decor and blending all of this together. And in some cases, I have actually seen where they put plank and tile in the same room on the same floor. And so why do I say cylindrical? Because cylindrical doesn't care. It's going to get into all of the nooks and crannies, the cracks, the crevices, the grooves in the tile. So that wear layer that I talked about, this wear layer, you need to understand is measured in mil. Now, what is a mil? A mil is 1/1000th of an inch. Now, if you're buying a residential grade material, and that's what's installed in the facility that you're taking care of, that's only 8 to 10 1/1000ths of an inch. If you happen to have standard commercial grade, that's going to be 20 mil. Well, let's say this, folks. Even at 20 mil, you can't see it. It isn't there for shine. It is there for protection. So understand that these wear layers and the traffic layer is not made to make the floor shiny. It is made and it's put on there with UV light in order to keep that floor protected, to keep that vinyl. So we're actually not walking on the vinyl itself. So whenever somebody says, oh, you know, I've got a vinyl floor, well, yes, but as you can see here, this urethane with aluminum oxide, and many different manufacturers have different ways of putting this together. The wear layers are what you're actually walking on top. The print layer is what you see, what it looks like. But a lot of our problems with what's already on the floor is below that, because not always what is below that is waterproof. So that brings up the next subject that we want to talk about. Well, not quite. Don't want to jump ahead of the game because we got to clean this floor. We got to get it clean. What's the best way? Remember my sand. Remember those 57 cutting edges. I don't need water. I need to get rid of it. So matting is your first line of defense. And when it comes to luxury vinyl floors, folks, this is where you've got to start your program, and you've got to make it a lot more, what should I say, workable, flexible, impactful. Well, basically what I'm saying is you got to start taking care of it and doing it right, because we want to keep the dirt, as you can see right here in this picture. I want to keep that dirt right there. I don't want it on my luxury vinyl floor. So as I'm talking to you this afternoon, I want to keep these mats at the door. Yes, outside. Whenever I go to a facility, I start looking at the building even before I get in and start adjusting and measuring, are they doing the right thing? So take care of having the right mats at the door, because these mats are what's going to keep that soil off your shoes. I'm going to play a short little 2-minute video here. I want to show you exactly how these mats should work and help keep that soil off your floor.
To demonstrate the effectiveness of the rubber-reinforced bi-level surfaces of the Defender and soil stopper mats over traditional flat wiper mats, we have placed the two side by side. We are now pouring equal amounts of sand over each one. You can already see a difference in the way the sand settles in the grooves of the Defender and soil stopper mat in comparison to the flat wiper mat. Next, we pour an equal amount of water over each mat. Again, there's a noticeable difference seen in the way the water puddles up on the surface of the wiper mat as opposed to the way it is held in the recessed grooves below the traffic surface of the Defender and soil stopper mat. Then we have an equal number of people walk across each mat. You can now see a clear difference in the amount of sand and water picked up on the shoes of the people walking across the Defender and soil stopper mat as opposed to the flat wiper mat.
Now, I'm not trying to promote a certain brand of material here. I just wanted to use that video to show you the effectiveness of the mat that you put in. I see a lot of people put mats in their doors, and the problem here is they've got the mat there for looks. The more aggressive the mat is, the better it is at keeping that sand off of your floor, keeping the abrasion from happening. And this, by and far, what I see out there in the market is what people are not doing. So my recommendation to you this afternoon, the first thing that you need to do is, if you've got luxury vinyl on your floors, is you need to change all of your mats, upgrade them, and take care of them. You can't just put them down and forget them. They always are there, but you've got to maintain them. So yeah, I know you see this on the screen. 30 feet of matting gets 90% of the contaminants off of your feet. This has been an age-old thing we've known for decades, but folks, I'm telling you, this is your first line of defense. You've got to really do this. The floor can be low maintenance if you take care of keeping that sand and grit off the floor, because that's what's going to tear that wear layer off of that floor. And you don't have a UV machine to put that wear layer back down there like the manufacturer gave it to you. So beyond that, you know what? Something's going to come into the building. We've got to take care of it. In my experience, I have found that we have a wonderful tool called microfiber. And all you need to do is use water. Yep, microfiber works with water. So let's use it. We don't need dust mop treatments. We don't need special chemicals. Just put water on your microfiber and damp mop. Don't dust mop. Dust mops never pick up everything. A damp microfiber will pick up more than anything else I've found. And by the way, you don't have to use another chemical to launder it out. Simply rinse it. It's simply water and dirt. Very easy to do. Now, question here is the surface, is the tile, is the plank, is it waterproof? So this is what I call the water test. And I teach all my clients this. I have to first look at the floor. And here you can see this great big crack. And this is where the two planks weren't joined together properly. Well, as I said, it's not what's on the surface, it's what's below the surface. If this is an elevated, or if you will, a floating luxury vinyl floor, then what you're going to have is you're going to have water that's going to get down that crack and cause problems potentially, because you can't tell what's underneath there. That material of the core and the underlayment could actually be, well, absorbent. On this case, however, I want to point out something to you, and this is what I call a waterproof floor. If I look at this here, and you see how the water beads across the seam, so this is what I call my water test. If you just simply take some water, pour it over the seam, and if the water disappears, well, I wouldn't want to be using a lot of water on that floor. And I think you know what I'm talking about when I say, what puts a lot of water on the floor? It's that 1400 tool that we've been using for decades and centuries? Okay, well, yeah, enough on that. On the other hand, you get a lot of this. Depending on where you're in the country, you know what? I don't want to have a device. I don't want to have something that smears and pushes that soil, that grit, that water down into those seams. So this is why I like cylindrical. Now, eventually, every time you're going to have to use some chemical mop. So in my programs, I talk about damp mopping and chemical mopping. And this is where I use a divided bucket system, a roller ringer, and microfiber. I'm going to play a video here. It's some pieces of some demonstrations I've done. There's no sound to it. I'm just going to talk over it. But before I get there, I want to go back to that rotary versus cylindrical. So this is what I saw very recently underneath a rotary auto scrubber that they were going to clean their luxury vinyl floor. You know, folks, unfortunately, this is what a lot of red pads look like. Now, just think about this. A red pad that is, you can see the obvious stuff. That's easy. But what you can't see is all the sand that is now inside that red pad. And now what I've got is I've got a sandpaper pad, and you're talking micro scratches, but that's what we're talking about here this afternoon, folks. Why would I want to use a pad on a floor that I don't want to tear the wear layer off? So I don't promote pads, and that's the reason. It has nothing to do with anything other than the pad loads up and we don't keep them clean. And so I'm going to use cylindrical because that cylindrical brush, well, it's self-cleaning. It doesn't load up. It doesn't build. It doesn't gather all of that stuff. So I can clean a dirty floor with a clean tool. And hey, then I get more speed, because your automatic scrubbers with the pads are usually running, below 400 RPMs. And here I can get, 12 to 1800. It just cleans more efficiently. So why not? Anyway, so as I said, I'm going to show you a little bit of a video here. Pardon me, this is some video that we use in our training classes. But I'm going to show you here how I use the divided bucket system to simply damp mop. There is no chemical in this. This is simply water. I'm simply going to put it into the rinse side, squeeze the mop out, and put it on the floor. Now, this is what we call a damp mop. All I'm going to do is I'm going to go with the grain of the wood. Now, this happens to be a golf course, their country club, and this is their dining room. Now, one of the things you can see probably in the video is this is a floating floor. Now, there's a couple ways I could tell that, but the first way is I could see the warping that was already happening. So right quick, I knew that they've been using too much water on their floor because you can see the warping that's happening on this floor. So this is what we call a damp mop. The only reason we're doing this is to pick up the dry debris that has been left on the floor before we actually start doing our chemical mopping. So the next segment you're going to see here is where I'm adding my chemical of choice. And yes, I use a pH neutral cleaning chemical. Now here's something I want to tell you this afternoon. I want to see that the pH is right. So a lot of times what I do is I actually do a litmus paper check. I also look at the SDS and find out what the manufacturer says the pH of the chemical is. I have seen many neutral cleaners out on the market that are above a 9 pH. I do not consider that neutral. Anything between 6 and 7 in my book here at the Academy is considered neutral. So now I put the chemical in the mop water, and I'm actually going to chemical mop using the same tool, same process. Only this time you saw I dipped into the solution tank of the unit where the chemical was. And one of the interesting things you'll see here is in the video, as we do this, notice how the chemical is now taking the water and it's sheeting across the floor better. This is why we use chemicals, so that we get better dispersion of the product. So you see that we're actually starting to get some of the shine. Yes, that's moisture, but we're also getting the actual chemicals that are on the floor. We're getting some of that residue off. So the challenge with most of these floors, folks, is we just simply got to get them clean. Damp mop and chemical mop, and if you can, we'll use auto scrubbers. Now this happens to be called a hurricane. It is a cone with a fan on the bottom of it, and this fan's going to dry this floor. Now here you're going to see me using the cleaning chemical with an auto scrubber. Now this happens to be a small one. What I like to do is I like to spray the chemical on the floor. You see, I use a pump-up sprayer. Always dilute your chemical properly, put it into the pump-up sprayer. Now remember, this is an elevated floor. I don't want a lot of water on the floor. Already they've got problems with that already. So what I do is I apply the chemical to the floor very sparingly with a pump-up sprayer. You see that spray coming out. You're going to put just a little bit on there. You don't need a lot. Remember, I do not want to saturate this elevated floor and create problems. This is what they've already done, and you don't want to be doing this. So what am I got in the machine? Well, you can see the little blue machine sitting here. This may look like a vacuum cleaner to you, but it's one of the 12-inch electric micro scrubbers. Many different manufacturers have them. This has a single brush, cylindrical. This has 2 squeegee blades. The tank on the back of the machine is the water tank. The tank on the front, the blue part there on this machine, is the recovery. And so what you're going to see is that we're going to scrub and pick up. What's it doing? It's rinsing the floor. So folks, one of the things I've found with luxury vinyl floors, and basically all floors, is we don't rinse. And so what I do is I like to put the chemical on very sparingly, let it sit, and then rinse the floor. Now you see the shine that's coming there? This is because, and you notice in the front of the film here, that we're not, this is where I haven't done anything. Here's where we're simply removing all of the films of the mops and the chemicals that they have left on the floor. And so when the customer asked us to come and repair this floor, the problem was is they wanted us to come in and restore it. You got to strip it off. You got to take everything off. You got to, we need finish put back on it. Well, the problem was is, did they really need that? Did they just need the floor clean? So different manufacturers have different tools, different chemicals. I'm not here to talk a lot about that this afternoon. This is more about practice. Damp mop the floor, chemical mop it when you have to, but if you possibly can, apply your chemical through the pump-up sprayer, let it sit, let it have time to digest and soften the soils, and then rinse the floor with your cylindrical auto scrubber. I think if you'll do this, you'll find out that your current LV floors, no matter whether it's a tile, a plank, or a sheet, you will come out better than they have before. And I tell a lot of people, let's start there first before we get into real aggressive stuff. Now, every once in a while, you saw that picture that was behind me as we started this afternoon. Well, that floor is a little bit beyond routine daily cleaning. So how do we go into restoring the floor? Well, we've got problems in the environment out there in the marketplace. And this is because people have been putting basic floor finish that's meant for VCT floors, and they put that on their floor. And then they've used whatever disinfectant. And what we have is we have a chemical buildup. And because this is a non-porous floor, it's very hard for this floor finishes and these products to actually stick. They're sitting on top of the floor. So what happens is it becomes just a big, soft, soily, gooey mess. I have more than my share of ones to restore. So use a product that is going to remove that finish. Remember, this the VCT is porous. The LV is non-porous. So we want to actually remove that brown, black stuff that's on that floor. Now, the reason I chose this picture is because a client actually brought this to me and showed me this picture and said, we took the mat up and this is what it looks like under the mat. And you can see it very distinctly. And then the rest of the floor had this black, ugly haze on it. Well, it had floor finish because that's what the contractor put on there. Well, they put it on there because the building manager wanted it. And then what happened is the disinfectants laid on top of that, made it sticky and gooey. Well, we used the Restore product and we found out the real true color of the floor. But here we used a black cylindrical brush on this floor machine, dual counter rotating. And within seconds, we took all of that off and found their natural floor again. Now, here's the interesting thing. Everybody has a way to take this stuff off the floor. And a lot of people are still using black pads or rotary machines. The problem is, I don't want to damage that luxury vinyl wear layer. Well, the finish that they put on there was protecting the wear layer, if you want to call it that. Now what we've got is the cylindrical brush does not damage any of the surfacing that was purchased and installed originally. And this is why I use a cylindrical brush to remove, or if you will, restore all of that previous situation. So how do we do it? Well, there's a couple different ways. Now, before I get into the restore, I want to show you there's one other thing that I do. And I'm going to show you this before we get into the restoration, because sometimes when you clean the floor, it just needs a little pop. Now, there's probably a few of you that are probably as old as I am that's on this webcast this afternoon. And you probably remember a product called Mop and Glow. Well, this is not a Mop and Glow. And I know a lot of people want to do it. This is a product that is meant to enhance the surface look of the floor. And many times this is what your customer's looking for. They just want it to look better. Do whatever you can. So in this case here, I took this area of floor and we had cleaned it, as you already have seen. And now we put the Restore product into the auto scrubber. And now, as I said, we've already cleaned it. So you always use this product after it's been cleaned properly. And of course, like all auto scrubbers do, we put the water down, brush it in, and suck it up. Now, this particular machine has two brushes, counter rotating against each other, one on one end, one on the other. It has two squeegees, or dual squeegees, I should say. So it really does remove everything. So it's putting it down, and look at that shine. See, this is what your customers usually are looking for. They just need it to be clean and renewed. They want a renewed look. So if you're looking for that, there are products on the market that will help you to renew the shine without a complete restoration of stripping. Because in this particular case, it didn't need to be stripped. It just needed everything removed off of it. And as you can see, the shine came back. Now, to our restoration. As you might have noticed over there to the right, there's this little blue area, and that happens to be where the epoxy floor is, where the kitchen was. And all of this grease was walking out of the kitchen. And so we had to take our chemical and our machine and go after all of this grease because it was loaded up. So the ultimate thing here that we talked about is how to get that grease off the floor. The reason I'm showing you this is because cylindrical brush technology allows us to go over many different types of floors without a problem. You notice that there's a metal strip in the video there. Well, it wasn't tacked down real good. And if I would have been using a rotary machine, I would have cut it. Now, that pad would have caught. Now, you see the chemical now is being applied to the LV product, and you can see it's turning white almost instantly. So that's where this is digesting the soils and the greases that are coming from the kitchen, and most likely that kitchen mop that's being used out there on the dining room floor. Now, what I'm explaining here is that we're going to use a cylindrical brush machine. You notice this has two black rotating brushes. On most of these machines, they have two different types, one for soft floors, one for hard floors. And you want to use the hard floor bristle because you want to keep the base of the machine up off of the floor. Now, I know we're probably trying to get this done in about 45 minutes. I think we're right around 40. We may run just a little long. This is quite a lot to this. But as you see here, we're just going to run over the brush. And as we do this, it's going to run over the seam. And you notice how I go right over that threshold because you know what? The mop just kept putting that grease right there. We've got to get all of that up. I'll also go over the epoxy, and you're going to see how it's going to just pick it up and scrub it right off of that epoxy. This is why I like cylindrical brush technology, folks. Even with all of the grease that's here, even with all of the soil, this brush comes out clean. It does not absorb, it doesn't hold it. And so it's very easy to use these machines and keep that underneath side clean. So what do I have to do? Well, yeah, there's that black, ugly stuff. See that stuff? Oh, good Lord. That's what's on the floor. Folks, that right there is what's on that LV floor. I don't need a stripping pad. I don't need high-powered chemical strippers. I just need a good medium degreaser and good brushing technology to get it loose. So as we did with our auto scrubber, you just go back to that and rinse it. Now, I know that there's a big conversation, probably one going on right now this afternoon, about, oh, well, when are they going to start talking about putting a coating on it? Well, folks, I got to tell you this. I don't like coatings on luxury vinyl floor. If we take care of them right, we don't need them. But some of the floors that you have out there right now have already been damaged through foot traffic, through our processes that we've been doing, through things we've been doing. So if you have a top coating on there now, and you've been stripping it with black pads and high-powered strippers, you probably already damaged the floor. Or if somebody has been going through and using their chairs and scratched the floor up, they've already scratched the floor. You got to cover that up. You got to take care of that. Now, one of the things, remember, this is a non-porous floor. It does not require 4, 5, 6, 10 coats. Only 2 coats. Basically, just so that you get even coverage, folks. That is it. Do not apply multiple coats to these floors. Only 2 coats. Now, with most of these products that are out there on the market today, we can also use these on other synthetic floors as well. So here you have linoleum and we have rubber, as seen in the picture. This is a floor that's just clean. It has nothing on it. We've restored it. And here the floor is with only 2 coats. Now, unfortunately, what a lot of people want to do is they want to apply the same amount of floor finish as they do on VCT. This is not required, nor is it there's no advantage to doing it. Matter of fact, it's probably going to cause you problems. So only put 2 coats on this floor once that you've cleaned it, once that you've restored it. Unfortunately, what this customer didn't pay attention. He put 5 coats on here. And oh yeah, you got a brilliant shine. And about 3 weeks later, because this was in a retirement community, yep, it just scratched like you know what, and they had, and noticed that there's not a matte one in sight. So you know what, sand and grit is going to take it off. I don't care what you put on there, it's going to deteriorate it. So yeah, folks, you can make that shiny floor out of your LV and create problems for you, or you can actually just take care of it the right way and not let that happen. Now, as important as the mats were at the start of this afternoon, I'm going to finish this afternoon with saying I have to put on protectors because our chairs, our tables are all now creating a problem because they're scratching the LV floor. So if you've got LV or you're going to be putting it in, my suggestion to you is that you need to be investing in these protective devices for your tables and chairs. We're right at our 45 minutes. I have one final Kahoot, and then we're going to open it up for questions and answers. I just want to see how many people stayed with us for the 45 minutes and can answer some of the questions from what we've done this afternoon. Wait a minute, let me go back to this. Here it is. So if you're still with us,
thanks for the great info, Dave. We do have a couple questions that came through, but before we jump in there, I just want to provide a reminder. You can still ask questions in that Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. It looks like one person recently asked, do you need to burnish LV coating?
Well, that would be dependent on the manufacturer that provided it. My feeling is, why would I want to? If you're having to burnish the LV coating, that would likely tell me that you're letting sand and grit get in, and that is tearing up your coating. I would say get rid of the coating and take care of keeping the sand and grit off the floor, or either that you don't have floor protectors and it's scratching the floor, because what you're doing is it's just like the floor finish on our VCT. You're scratching the finish that's on the top, and now you're trying to smooth it out. I don't like LV finishes because now it really just really depends on, did they actually get that floor very clean before they actually started to use a pad, and by all means, when somebody said burnish, propane machines do not belong on vinyl floors.
Okay, and what is the chemical makeup of the Restorer product?
The one that I use here is something that we designed about 5 years ago, and it's a 9.5 degreaser stripper. It is, so it would actually, if I were to actually do it, it would be a green certified product. We did not go that way, but it's just a very medium pH, because remember, if I've got cylindrical technology, that product's just sitting on top of that vinyl. This is just saying, come and get me. I don't need a high powered stripper.
Okay, and what is the best way, would you say, Dave, to clean discolored or stained LVP?
Pardon?
What is the best way you would recommend to clean or discolored or stained LV?
Well, just with the Restore, if it's stain is one thing. Everybody says stain. Well, the problem is stain is something you can't remove. A spot is something that you can. So I went into one place and they said that they had a stain, and you could actually see the writing. And what had happened is that the people, when they had made the building, on the concrete they had painted, and they laid the luxury vinyl over top, and that was bleeding through the luxury vinyl. There wasn't anything you could do for it because it was bleeding through the floor. If it's something that's fell on top of it, this is one of the things about vinyl, is it's non-porous. Remember that, folks, it's non-porous. So it usually doesn't stain. It's usually just a surface issue that can be removed, and the Restore, I have found, has been able to remove it every time.
Okay. One person asked, and I might have to paraphrase a little here, they asked what brand of auto scrubber do you recommend when it comes to small vacuum looking machines? We try to stick away from, swaying anyone towards a particular brand. So I guess what are you looking for in that type of product? I'd like to ask.
Yeah, and let me say it this way, and here at the Academy, I'm product agnostic. So I'm more about the technique and what the machine does rather than the brand. And my feeling is this: there are machines out there that have a cylindrical roller. They do not have a squeegee. And so for me, what I'm going to say is I want a cylindrical brush, soft cylindrical brush, and I want to have a squeegee on the floor because I want to use minimal amount of water, maximize the retrieval. 2 brushes is going to be better than 1. 2 double vacuum shoes are going to be better than 1. So it just really depends. Most of your small 12-inch electric are a single brush with a vacuum shoe on either side. And that's what I'd recommend over the microfiber roller with no squeegee.
Okay. And what percentage of new floors would you say are LV versus VCT?
That's hard to say, but I know that companies like Mannington Mills and several other major manufacturers actually quit making VCT. They have actually taken carpet mill facilities and turned them into LV. Early on, LV was made in other foreign countries, and we got a lot of, well, let's just say bad product. We didn't know what we were getting. And unfortunately, a lot of us still have that on the floor because that's what was installed. Today, I would say more and more of that is US made. We have more control of it. But I would say that if I were looking at floors, of the new floors that are being put onto the surface, it's going to be probably closer to 90% of the new floors going down. That's going to be hard surface floors, is going to be some type of LV. And it could be any one of the 4 types of makeup.
Okay. And Dave, could you kind of repeat kind of what someone had asked, what kind of mats you suggest? Or what you're looking for?
Well, there's actually 3 different types of mats. And I do it this way. I want 10 feet of matting outside. And this needs to be a rubber cleated type mat that I can simply rinse off. And when I say 10 feet, now think about it this way. If you've ever been to a queue line at an amusement park, everybody goes down the queue line, right? So if I take and want to queue people to the door and I want them to go, if I have a 10-foot runner that goes from the door 10 foot out, that is going to cue people to go down my runner. The reason I have that mat there is to get all of that soil off of their feet as much as I can outside. So the more that you can remove outside, the better you are. So that's just an absolute must. Once you get inside, whether it be a foyer or you're inside the building proper, I want to have 10 feet of bi-level, bi-directional. Now, what that means is that people are going to be walking on a certain layer up top, and the dirt is going to fall below their feet. Bi-directional means that the grooves go different directions, so that as people scuffle across, it pulls it off their feet, collects it into the mat. Now, a lot of people don't like that mat because you can't vacuum it, and that is correct. So that means you're going to have to change your process, which a vacuum cleaner is not the right tool because it won't work. But what did I buy the mat for? To remove soil, not vacuum. And then, of course, your final mat is 10 feet of matting inside the building to dry the feet or get the fine debris off. Because as I showed you there, and I have done this for decades, the more that I can remove that soil off of the feet at the door, the more control I have, the less problems I have inside the building. With LV, this is an absolute must.
All right. And again, we appreciate we're getting a good amount of questions. I guess the next one here, Dave, is someone said, I have Mannington Realities 2 flooring. What is it considered? Should it have been sealed? I have bad spots that I cannot recover.
So I think you're asking, should I seal an LV floor? Yeah, the thing is, when you get it, it's already got wear layers that are UV light, ultraviolet light set to the vinyl. You can't replace that in the field. There's nothing you need to do. Sealing isn't going to do anything. Remember, this floor on the surface is 100% non-porous. Until you get to the core or the backing, could there be any porosity? So the surface that you're working with is 100% non-porous. Sealing isn't going to do anything. Now, I know that I might step on some toes here, but for some reason we feel that we have to put a coating on it because we've been doing it for 100 years with VCT, and it's 2 different products. So no, I don't recommend you do that unless it's absolutely necessary and the floor has been previously damaged, and that's the only way to cover up the problem.
Okay, and we had Eric had asked, luxury vinyl typically has a low surface energy. In the event that someone needs to apply a restorative coating, what is the proper sequence of steps to take to prepare the luxury vinyl for the additional coating?
You have to restore what and for us, our product we have here that I designed, it's actually called Restore. And that is a product to remove any prior issues. You know, like I said, floor finish or greases, you can't just clean it. You have to restore it. And as I showed there, you apply it with a pump sprayer, you use a cylindrical brush machine, you scrub it, and then you use your auto scrubber and you rinse. And we do not use mops. We don't use other chemicals. You rinse that floor because I need that floor to be a neutral pH. And I actually test that with a pH paper.
Oh, okay. That's very good to know. Rosa had asked, which machine should I use to remove finish on stairs and landing?
Some of the manufacturers do have a 7-inch cylindrical brush machine. It'll hang over some of the stairs, but hey, you know, it is what it is. On the other hand, you've seen these machines. I'm just going to, I call it the doodle scrub. It's an oscillating machine. It's 4 by 7 inches, and they have what's called an AstroTurf pad on it. And I would use that AstroTurf pad in place of the cylindrical brush, because on these, it's just, you're working with such a tight confined space.
Okay. Geo asks, how soon after new floor installation should we begin scrubbing floors with the machine at a commercial property? And what's a good frequency? They want to say, I know it depends on foot traffic, but on average, what's a good frequency?
Well, the very first thing that you do before you install the floor, have the right mats in the door ready to put down. Before that floor is installed, have the chair protectors on the chairs and tables, because instantly when people start walking in, they're going to bring sand in the floor. You know, I'm not concerned about dirt. Dirt is an organic material. It doesn't do anything to the floor. It just makes it look bad. Sand that is in the dirt is your enemy. And the second that somebody walks in, I don't care how many people, I don't care where you are in the country, that sand immediately starts tearing up that wear layer. So I've got to have the right mats in. I've got to have the floor protectors. Then the thing is get rid of that dry soil. If it gets past the mats, I'm going to damp mop. And you know, my question is, why do we only do this once a day? You know, the traffic wasn't once a day. So you're going to have to do this depending on what the traffic is. You know, I think it's interesting how we have these signs on the back of the bathroom, you know, that it was cleaned every hour. What would happen if you ran a damp mop over your LV floor every hour? Well, the sand wouldn't build up and you wouldn't scratch the floor, and we'd be able to maintain the floor without all of this conversation about burnishing and floor finishes. So, you know, the frequency is really as much as you possibly can do. And I think that's outside of the box of probably what we're currently doing.
Okay. We had another question that it talks about a specific brand of product, and that's something we try to distance ourselves on. So I'll go to another question. Are there new technologies or products that are improving floor care efficiency?
Well, I think we've just talked about most of it right now this afternoon. You know, the whole thing here is I don't know that we need to look at new products and technology. We just need to look at the practices that we do. I will tell you that almost every facility that I walk into anywhere in the country, I don't find the right mats, and I don't find the mats being taken care of. So why do I want to rely on a new chemical or technology when I'm not taking care of the main thing? I find nobody's using floor protectors. I saw a brand new school put in all kinds, just thousands of square feet of both LVT and P, and never put a floor protector in, didn't put any mats in. And they were like, where's my finish that I can put on? We're relying on something that can't work. Just think about this, folks. Sand is made up of a granite type material. And there's only one thing tougher than granite, and that's diamonds. And I don't think we're walking on diamond floors. So what that means is that sand is going to tear up whatever coating that you put on that floor.
Excellent. It looks like we have surpassed the top of the hour here, and we do not have another question in. So thanks again, Dave, for all the great information. Do you have any final thoughts for our audience before we conclude today's event?
You know, I think the thing here is we just need to look at what we're doing and distance ourselves. These are two different flooring materials. You know, we have VCT, and we're trying to apply 100-year-old thought processes to take care of that floor to technology that's 20 years old. You know, and I think that last question, what new products or technology? We need to do a better job of daily care. What VCT does is it relies on burnishing, stripping, finishes, very labor intensive, very costly processes. And we've been getting by with no daily maintenance. I mean, think about this. 30,000 people come through the building and we scrub the floor one time a day. That just doesn't work. And I think this is the main thing with LV. It's more daily care, more routine care. It's like maintaining your vehicle or your house every day and taking care of it, not waiting till the roof is about to collapse in and then complain that it took us $20,000 to fix the roof. It's the same thing here. Take care of your LV every day and it will last, it will work for you. But unfortunately, we are stuck in our 100-year-old rut. Hope this helps.
Yes, absolutely. Great. Thanks again, Dave, for all the great information. And somebody did allude to the slides and the presentation in general. Just a reminder to everyone, to receive your CEU credit, you can download your certificate in the Earn Certification module. And then also, as far as the webcast and that information, will be archived on cleanlink.com, so you can go visit it at any time you want to nab all this amazing knowledge. Again, that's cleanlink.com. Of course, that's the home of our three brands, our three magazines. So with that, I will conclude today's event. Thanks everyone for attending, and have a great rest of your afternoons or mornings in some cases.
Thank you.